let's get started because we've got a lot to cram in today. This session's going to be exactly 60 minutes and then we'll stop our session. I'm going to introduce the guest speaker very, very soon. And we're going to be talking about business advisory. In fact, what we've done is we've pulled together what we find is the most common questions that we get. We're going to go through 7 questions between myself and Kathy Gregory. And we'll also try to answer some of your questions along the way. So if you have a question, you know the drill now, stick them in the comments box, but put a QQ in front, 2 capital Qs, just to help it jump out, because as you'll see, there's lots of comments going on. We have as well here, Michael's his from Chicago. First time to one of my sessions. Welcome to you as well. So before we dive in and start, one of the things that I always do to help them make the world a better place is through the amazing B1G1 organization. For every single person that's here live on one of my live sessions, we make a contribution to a project somewhere in the world. And the topic for the chosen project for today is it's all about education. So in Siam Reap, sometimes children have challenges getting to school because in the remote villages they just can't get to the school. So there's a project that's set up to provide bicycles. So for each and every one of you that's here today live, we will be making a contribution on your behalf afterwards for each and every one of you a bicycle for a day to help people in some of those villages to get to school and to get an education. So that's through the amazing B1G1. Thank you for being here. So with that said, let me now bring on my very, very special guest, Kathy Gregory, who some of you know really well because she's often on my webinars and live streams. Hi there, Kathy. How are you?
Hi, I'm fantastic. It's just great to see you again. I love talking with you.
That's awesome. I love being talking to you and having a good chat as well about advisory. Because Kathy, you are, I think, the person of all the people I know, the person I think has the most in-depth knowledge and experience of how to deliver advisory services. And for anyone that doesn't know Kathy, Kathy's part of LivePlan. Kathy, anything by way of introduction you want to say about yourself for the people that don't know who you are?
Sure, yeah. I've been with LivePlan. Palo Alto Software is the maker of LivePlan, so that's our company, but LivePlan's a product. I've been here for about 6 years. And prior to that, my experience was kind of in 2 areas: in financial forecasting, in various ways and means, for companies who were managing big projects, for companies who needed it for their own business. Some were private, some were public. Anyway, so financial forecasting. And then business process design, just by way of my background in the places I worked at these engineering places, and process is key to engineering. And so kind of these 2 things came together when I was ready to look for a new role, and LivePlan was really wanting to bring business advisory, strategic advising to accountants who they know can bring this knowledge to their small business owners. So how can we do that? So it really is a passion of mine. I want accountants to be addicted to forecasting because it's so awesome. The work is fun, the small businesses need it, and it's such an opportunity for them.
Absolutely. And I know that the last time we did a session together, which I think was about 3 months ago, you were talking about why forecasting is such a powerful form of advisory work, and I'll ask Sarah later in the session to post a link to that in the comments below in case anyone wants to check that out, but we'll do that later. We'll put that link in. Also, anybody who's just joined, if you have questions, put QQ in front of your question in the comments box and we'll answer them. And also, if you are using LivePlan, if you are a LivePlan user, let me know in the comments box. Okay, so Kathy, what we decide we do today is we both get lots of questions about advisory, business advisory, and we decide for this session we pull together what we both get most frequently. So we've come up between 7 questions. We've got 55 minutes. So what we'll do, Kathy, is we'll just go through the questions and we'll take turns answering them. The first 2 we'll rattle off fairly quick so we can dive into what I think are the more important ones, and we'll keep pausing just if there's any questions coming through. Let me just check before we dive in. So we have Hirsch's here. I forget your first name. I apologise. I know you're on my last show. I know you have a question as well. We'll come on to your question shortly. Susan says just signed up for Life Plan Bootcamp, and that's coming up very soon, which I know, Kathy, you'll mention that a little bit later on, which would be really cool. And I believe I'm speaking there as well.
Yes,
okay, I am, which I can't wait. So yes, I will be speaking about pricing and pricing advisory work in just a few weeks' time. We'll tell you the date of that later on today. But let's get into the questions then, Kathy. And the first one, I think, is probably a nice, easy question to dive into first, which is really for people who I often get this question, which is, what is business advisory? So, Kathy, what would be your definition of that?
That's the fundamental question, right? Because everything builds on that. Whatever you decide you're going to offer in the form of business advisory ends up being the product that you sell, and all of the work that you do feeds to it, right? So what we know, especially at LivePlan, because we work with millions of small business owners, is a keen sense of what they need and what they want. Versus maybe what they ask for or articulate when they are hiring their accountant. What small business owners need and want is to be able to see ahead at their cash and profit and be able to make confident decisions. What they want is help making confident decisions. They don't want the answers necessarily. They don't want you to tell them, do this, do that, do the other. They want a collaborator that can bring information to them and talk with them and collaborate about what the right decisions are. And those decisions most often just revolve around spending decisions at their foundation, right? And so it's important, I think, to answer the question of what business advisory is by answering the question of what do small business owners want, because that's what business advisory should serve. So it should be a form of strategic planning, capturing the business model and representing that in the form of a forecast, and then using that forecast every month in a cyclical way as a roadmap to guide the business. And the accounting, the compliance work that goes on feeds that, because every month when you see your forecast versus your actual, you can take learnings from that. You can find where the opportunities and roadblocks are, use that as information to help make good decisions, but also feedback to the model and make a better model. The compliance work feeds back into the model.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that when we get to question number 7, we'll kind of dive a bit more into what do we actually do as part of advisory. I always struggle a bit with the term advisory. I think it's just sometimes a bit too broad, which is why I think people just get a bit confused with it. For me, though, it's in my simple mind, I try to simplify things. And to me, it's really about helping clients build a more successful, profitable business, helping them improving their profits, their sales, their cash flow, helping them really to achieve what their goals are. And I think that an advisory service is going to have a number of key components around that, one of which you've mentioned. It's about understanding where they want to get to in life, what their goals are. It's also about helping them understand the numbers, producing the right numbers, helping them understand the numbers, helping them give them advice, hence the word advisory. But I think a really important part of it, which I'm sure we'll come on to later, is it's about holding them accountable. I think it's really important. It's not about, and I think you just mentioned it, it's not about us giving all the answers. It's about holding their hand and taking them through the process, which I think we'll probably get onto later, Kathy. But that's kind of my thoughts. So the second question that people ask is why should I do advisory? What's the opportunity? And so where do you see advisory being a big opportunity for accountants and bookkeepers?
Yeah, the reason it's a huge opportunity is because this type of work has to happen every month. It isn't seasonal. It must happen monthly. The small business owners need it every month. It's just a fundamental part of what they do. And it is deeper than the compliance work. The compliance work is needed. It's necessary. But this helping a small business owner make confident decisions and understand where they're going and be able to represent their goals in terms of a financial roadmap and really helping them get there, that is deeper to what they really need. And so that's why the opportunity is so great. And then financially, it's great. It's profitable because it is scalable because forecasting, just by its very nature, gets more accurate as time goes on. So you first build a forecast. You're building a model. It takes a couple of months to get 2-3 months really to get a working forecast. But once you have it, it's the actual work becomes fairly light on your end. It's mostly about having a conversation with the small business owner. So if you're charging a nice flat rate every month, a value price rate, ideally, but at least a fixed fee every month. Think about it as a subscription. It really should be like subscription billing every month. And that's why it's an enormous opportunity, because small business owners need it, it's profitable, and you can scale it because of its efficiency.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a big opportunity for a number of reasons, but I certainly think that compliance work isn't dead, but we do know that there's a lot of automation coming and that we do need to change. The profession will change. And one of the things that most people here know, I teach value pricing, which is all about pricing based on the value. And if we can create more value, then we can get higher prices. And interestingly, I was just talking to somebody just a couple of hours ago in the Value Pricing Academy, telling me about somebody who's just joined the academy, and they've been working through my teaching of how to reprice existing clients, and they're getting 50 to 60% higher prices. I was interviewing somebody yesterday for my next book, and he was saying how he reprices existing clients and increases average fee across his entire practice by 47% the first year. And the way people are doing that is because they're now thinking about, well, how can I create more value for my clients? And when you create more value for your clients and you communicate the value and give them those choices, then the right clients will gladly pay you more money. That's what I found in my own accounting firm and with the firms I work with, that when we create more value, the right clients will want that stuff. They want that help. And so it's a powerful opportunity for us to work with the clients that really value us, to do work that's more exciting, the work that's changing people's lives. And of course, for us, when we price it right, then it's extremely rewarding. And on that topic of pricing then, so that's the first two questions. Let's go a bit deeper on the next 5. And the next one was you sent me, Kathy, which was really interesting because I often get the question, how do you price advisory work? But you said the question that you get, which is really an interesting take on it, is how do you price advisory with other traditional accounting work? So perhaps first, if you might want to expand on that particular question. Why are people asking the how to price advisory with traditional accounting work? I'm just intrigued by that, and then your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too far ahead because there's another question that leads from this, but they go together. So I don't want to reveal the next one, but it's because accountants are already doing so much. And they already have fairly lengthy pricing lists. And so then they say, well, which section of this that I already price is this business advisor? How do I slide this in? And I think the answer has to do a little bit with pricing on value versus pricing on, lists of things. I don't know how better to say that. But when you can reveal the value of the thing to the customer, then all of a sudden really your whole pricing model just changes. And so what I've found the answer to be is that that's what ends up happening. The accountants really end up changing their pricing model to be one of value. And sometimes you can start with just a menu fixed price way of doing it, where still value items are listed, but it's just kind of menu driven. And then they seem to graduate to full value pricing where where the customers are building up the specialized bundle that works for them. And that's when you really get your maximum prices.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the question you're referring to that we'll come on to in a short while is those ones that are doing some elements of this, but they're currently doing it for free. And how to get that. And we'll definitely come on to that because that's I get that as well. I get that. One of the things that when I teach how to price advisory work, one of the things that I strongly recommend is that we price it separate to compliance work and not try to bundle it all in, because advisory work is very, very different. It's a very different type of work. it's very different in terms of the value that we're creating. So we need to price it properly. But I do know that sometimes people like to bundle things together and price it as part of their bookkeeping and so on. And the way I teach it, when we think about our other core compliance services, is it may be that if you're using menu pricing, creating packages, let's say bookkeeping applies the same to annual financial statements. It may be that you want to create more value so that people choose to buy your premium bookkeeping service, your premium financial statement service. And I would suggest that to add more value into those more expensive premium packages, by all means, build in some advisory. So you might, for example, as part of your premium bookkeeping, have a strategic meeting once a year with the client and perhaps give them some advice. But I would recommend that you treat that as almost like a taster, a teaser for what you can do if they want to then actually buy your full-blown advisory service. So by all means, take some elements of advice, just some of the valuable stuff, and build it into other compliance work to add value and to tease them. But really, it should be priced separately. Any thoughts on that, Kathy?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I see working the best. The compliance work are certain line items, and the advisory bit are other line items. But then when those things can be represented in terms of value back to the customer, that's where you really are able to, I don't want to say sell it easier, but just express what it is. The customers understand it better and they gravitate toward it better. Because what happens naturally with this is that you end up with your best customers. That's the other benefit of this, because people, I think you sort of alluded to it before, Mark, but people will sort of matriculate to the work that they want and need. And if that's what you're offering, now all of a sudden we have a match between, the best work you like to do and the best customers that you like to do it for. It just happens naturally.
Sure. Yeah. I think I might flip the order of the next two questions, actually, thinking on my feet. But I think now is perhaps a good time to address a couple of questions that have come in, just so people don't know I'm not ignoring them. I have seen the questions coming in. And also see that Philip says, sorry, I'm late. Philip, you're forgiven because you come to every live session. So I'm cool with that. Janine from Saskatoon asks a question, which I'll throw at you, Kathy. She's struggling with the difference between business advisory versus business coaching. Can you elaborate on that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I really feel that business advisory is about the forecasting and the ability to have a continual conversation with the customer about really their profitability and cash and other financial elements that matter. I mean, if they're carrying large assets or if they have those things too, but typically month over month, the conversation is about what is my profitability now and in the future? What is my cash position now and in the future? That's what it always boils down to. And so when I know that, then what decisions should I be making? Is it time to hire more staff? I think I might need to buy capital equipment. Is now the time, or is the time 6 months down the road, 8 months down the road? And if I buy that capital equipment, what will then that do to my revenue? Will I create more profit out of that revenue? So it's really about, you're doing the bookkeeping, you are, by way of booking the transactions and doing everything that you do, you are creating financial statements that represent the past. And what I'm saying is create financial statements that represent the future and talk to those small businesses about that so that they understand what decisions to make now. That is what I think of as business advisory. Coaching, to me, is just a broader thing about management techniques, or maybe you get into HR. I don't know how Mark would answer that, but to me, advisory is about the financial advising.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer it either. I have no idea. But I think sometimes we get hung up sometime on terms and terminology, and I'm not sure that it really is that important. To me, it's biz advisory. It is ultimately about helping clients be more successful, helping clients to achieve their goals. And then what we need to decide as we are building our advisory solutions, what will that consist of? What will we do? And I mentioned a couple of things earlier that which we might come back to as an element of strategic planning in there, because we have to understand what does the business owner want to achieve, where do they want to get to. We have to understand that. because we're accountants, because we understand numbers, then obviously for us a comfort zone area is producing information in a more understandable format. It's about producing the numbers, perhaps using ratio analysis and so on, and then using our skills with numbers to interpret those numbers, to explain to the client what they mean. Another important element, which Kathy, you've mentioned, is forecasting. I think is an important element of that. Meeting with the client regularly and giving advice, interpreting the numbers. And I think to some extent there is an element of coaching built in because, and we'll probably get onto this later, Kathy, with that last question about how you deliver it. But it's more about asking the client the right sort of questions and not coming up with all of the answers. It's about and holding them accountable. And there's an element of that's kind of what a coach really does. A coach, whatever coach you have, whether it's an athletics coach or whatever, they will help you set your goals and then they'll hold you accountable for doing that. So there's an element of that inside advisory. So Janine, I hope that helps. But if they've got any more questions, please do ask. There was another question which, should we do it now or later? I've left this one because it was earlier. I think we're going to come back to this question. I think it's not one of the 7 questions, but it was asked, was how does one find clients who want advisory services, as most of them want compliance only? I'm going to throw that there for now, but let's answer it later, Kathy, because I think there's other questions like how can I sell my current clients on advisory? So I could probably start there actually first. Let me just see. I'm just seeing if there are any more questions that we'll answer at this stage. We're getting loads of comments coming in now. Okay. No, let's do another question, another one, because we want to get through the 7. So let's go with that one that we touched on earlier, which is people often say, I might be doing some of this for free. What do I do? It might be they're giving some advice, they're producing reports, they're doing some ratio analysis, they've got graphs and charts and things they're giving to their clients they've been doing for free and now realize that this is valuable stuff, we should be charging for it. What do I do? What are your thoughts, Kathy, on that?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. And what works the best is when you can determine what it is you offer in a standardized way and just make sure that you're offering that every time. So it's a little bit about scope creep, right? You have to decide what it is that you offer your clients and which clients you're giving that to. And then when to be revealing. So boy, how do I answer this a little more concretely? So if you've got a client right now who only is on compliance and they don't have the business advisory, maybe they don't have the forecasting, they don't have whatever element you call it, but you think they would benefit from it. Instead of getting down a slippery scope creep situation where you're just sort of doing some things for free, because accountants, boy, are they an industry who likes to help people. More than any industry I've ever met, there is a service piece of this. I think every accountant I've ever met just feels like they are almost in servitude to their clients. And then what can happen is that's when scope creep happens. So if you can draw some clear lines around what it is you do, and it's okay to reveal a little bit of it, say, oh, I've developed this little revenue only forecast for you. Look what would happen if we, did this work. That's a sampling. That's different than giving free work. And if you can just draw lines around that, it's better. And where that starts is knowing what it is you offer. So for every client, if I'm doing compliance, it's only this, and I have hard rails on that. And if I'm doing something else, it's that plus this next, and I have really hard lines. And I know that there's a little sampling of each one up the food chain that I can offer that will sort of reveal the next thing to the client and pull them along. That is what works. I hope that isn't too squishy or broad.
No,
that makes sense.
It does make sense. And this is a question that I get frequently as well, not just in the context of advisory, but more generally. As you rightly say, we're too nice as accountants. I remember when I was running my accounting firm, I always wanted to give an amazing service, so I would do everything. And I get this question a lot, and it's essentially, the way I describe it is, very often we are guilty of selling the client a Rolls Royce for the price of a Mini. We do that all the time. And so how do we fix that? And And part of the answer to fixing it, well, going forward is exactly what you've said. We just have to be more clear with the scope right up front as to what the client's getting and what they're not getting. And we'll come back to that with another question later, I know. But I think it's also, well, what do we do if we've already done this? What if we've already been giving the client stuff for free? And sometimes it's a case of just having an honest conversation with the client and saying that this is what we've been doing for you in the past, but we haven't been charging you for these elements. And one way of doing it, when I teach, I mentioned earlier about repricing existing clients. If you haven't been using menu pricing, given choices, then when you're repricing an existing client, it's a great strategy to now say to them, we've been thinking about how we can help you with your business, and what we do now with our clients is we give them different choices. So you can choose the package, the solution that best meets your needs, and you then present them with your options, and you make sure that none of those options are the same as what they had before. So you give them a choice of, they can have what they had before, but that's a higher price, or they can have what they should have had for the price they had before, the compliance only, if you like, and then the client has a choice. And if the client sees that if the client really wants those extra things that's in your middle or most expensive package, then those clients will just recognize they just have to start paying for that. And many do. If they see the value, they'll pay for that. And if they don't see the value, they can always stick with a price that's similar to what they've paid before, but you're now not giving stuff away for free. That's one of the ways to...
That's great advice. And how much of this too then is about making it and feeling it, that it isn't, you're not selling you're selling the products, which is a component of your services. The products that you sell really are your services, but it isn't selling you. It isn't, oh, I cost more or I am less, whatever. These are the products I offer. So just pick the one that makes sense, and it isn't about me. Does that come across right? Does that make sense? And because I feel like if you disassociate, then it's easier to tell customers, well, oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
There's a dog somewhere. That was a very loud dog. Yeah. She's gone. Okay. While Kathy's disappearing. Oh, you're back.
I'm really sorry. We are still working from home.
We're live. We're live, Kathy.
Delta variant COVID. Yes, I know you're live.
Yeah.
And
these things happen.
Yeah. We still work from home here and just rolling with it. So sorry about that.
Yeah, that's fine. Sorry, did you finish that point, or did you want to carry on?
Yeah, what I'm trying to articulate is when you do the great advice that you just gave, which is show the clients the options, explain to them, well, this is what you had before, it's going to be a different price, these are the other options. That's about the product and not you. It doesn't have to be about you. It doesn't have to feel personal that, oops, I'm going to be more, or maybe I'm not valued as much. It isn't. It's the products that you offer. That's what they're choosing.
Yeah,
and it's up to them to pick the value or not. Sure,
and that's why we need to be clear as to what is this advisory service. We've got to make it real. That's why we figure out what we're going to do, and we create some packages. We create some stuff that we can show people to make it real. And then the more we turn into, sometimes people use the phrase productize. If we productize our knowledge and sell it as products, then this is the thing that we're selling, and then. Something that people that I work with in the Value Pricing Academy, I talk about using pricing software, because then it's not about you making it more expensive. It's the system saying that this is what we're doing. This is the price list. And as someone once said to me when they were using my pricing software, they said it's a bit like going into a restaurant and you see the menu with the prices of all the food, and you don't argue and debate over the price with the waiter. That's just the price. It's not the waiter's fault. That's the prices. And you can either buy or don't buy.
That is precisely what I was trying to get at. Yeah, exactly. And the more accountants can think of these items as products, the more you can productize, the easier that becomes. And then also your marketing becomes easier and a lot of other things too. But yeah, the more you can think about it as a product.
Yeah. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'll move on to our fifth question in a bit. But before I do that, Kathy, let's see who else we've got here. Let's see what other questions we've got. So Zippy's here. is late. Don't worry, you're here, which is cool. Brian has got a question, and I still haven't missed Hirsch's question because we will come back to that. Brian says, how might we persuade a client who cannot see the value of business advice?
So I'm going to take that. I don't know what the business advice, depends on, I suppose, what the business advice is, but I haven't met a small business owner yet that doesn't want to understand what their profitability will be 6 months, 8 months, 12 months down the road, and what their cash position will be 6 months, 9 months, 18 months down the road. And again, maybe we're getting wrapped around terminology, but to me, it isn't about the advice. That's not what it is. That's not the value. The value is in getting the numbers right, the what already happened right, getting that right, which you're already doing, and then feeding the forecast model correctly with the right assumptions. That's part of this advisory. It is about asking the questions to the small business owner that get the right information out of their head and into that model. So it's things like, on the expense side, that's usually pretty easy. It's a straightforward list of what their expenses are. It's questioning those expenses, making sure they make sense. That's usually pretty straightforward. But on the revenue side, it's about really poking into what is the timing on this revenue? How much assurance do you have on it? It's asking the questions in all the right ways to get the revenue model right, so you have timing right and pricing right, and then the assumptions that affect timing of profitability and cash, like when do they take their receipts, and what other things that other assumptions that feed the model that get to this future profit and cash. That's the work, and that's the value, and that's what you're really doing. It isn't about saying, well, I think you should do this, and I think now you should do this. It's about asking the right questions, and then once the model's built, every month, then delivering that information to them, communicating it to them, making them understand, okay, this is your cash position in 6 months. Here's why. The reason is you're not collecting on whatever the reasons are that are driving that. The model will usually show it. Communicating that to them. Now the conversation happens, and the business owner will actually hold themselves accountable if you bring the information and open the conversation and show them. So instead of saying, here's your month-end reports, it's here's your forecast. Let's understand why it's this way. Why is your cash position showing this 8 months down the road? Let's dig into that and see if we can change it, or your profitability. That's the work. And I just can't imagine a small business owner not seeing the value there.
Yeah, and I actually think this goes into our next question. So I'm going to give my thoughts on what Brian's asked. And the next question we're going to deal with anyway, Kathy, is how can I sell my current clients on advisory? So I think we're kind of getting into that question anyway. So going back to Brian's question, how might we persuade a client who cannot see the value of business advice? I always would suggest that you've got to focus on what are the outcomes, what are the results. It's not so much on the advice, it's not what you're going to do, the inputs, it's about the result you can get for people. And so when we're thinking about getting our clients interested in buying advisory services, I think back to when I was running my accounting firm back in the 1990s, and I started getting into advisory about the year 99, 2000, 2001. And I had a lot of success with advisory. And what worked for me when I was talking with clients is I was playing with numbers and showing them what's possible in their business, because most clients haven't got a clue what's possible, and they don't understand the numbers, they don't understand business models like we do. So I would just do simple calculations. I actually created a piece of software for doing it, which I found my most powerful selling tool. It's a piece of software that members of the Value Pricing Academy get, called Profit Diagnostic. But basically what I would do, and you could build in an Excel spreadsheet, what I would do is I'd ask the client a few simple questions and just play with some numbers. I'd say, for example, how might you, if you want to grow your business, you said you want to double your business in the next 5 years. If you want to do that, what might you do with your price? And usually I'd say, I need to perhaps reduce my prices a bit. That's the answer I always got. And so I would say then, okay, so how much might you, to grow your business and double your business, how much do you think you might think about reducing your prices by? And they might say 5%. And I'd say, okay, so if you did that in the next over the next few months, how many extra clients do you think you get? And typically they'd say the same number. Well, I'd get another 5% client straight away. And if you plug the numbers into their business and do the math, you actually work out that very often that just wipes a whole chunk of profit off their business, because they don't do the maths. They don't understand the underlying business model. And so what I would then start doing in that process is I'd start saying, I'd ask questions like, so tell me, what do you find is the best way of growing your business, of getting new customers? And very often the answer is, well, referrals, word of mouth. And so I then say, well, how many systems do you have? How do you systematically get referrals? What systems do you have in your business? And they'd always look at me blank. I don't have any systems. I kind of keep my fingers crossed and hope people are saying good things about me. So I'd say, well, what if we could put some systems in place? What if we could put some referral systems in place? And I'd give a couple of examples, and they'd go, wow, that's a good idea. Okay, well, let's look at the numbers. If we were to put some of these systems in place, how many extra customers do you think you could get? And they would give a number, let's say, I could grow by another 10%. And you plug that in, and you can work out very simply what the extra profit would be. I mean, you could do that with a paper and pen. But what I then found was that when you make some small little changes in a business, like you get them to understand they could perhaps put their price up by 5% and not lose any clients, and they could put in some referral systems and get 10% more customers, you start playing with the maths, and very soon you could show them that it's potential they could add on 6 figures to their bottom line profits. And then they get excited. Wow, could I really do that? Absolutely you can. That's what we do. We help people to unlock the potential in their business. We help them by understanding the numbers better, helping them by asking the right questions to come up with the ideas. And that's when they get excited, when they can see what the outcome, the end result, what might be. And so going back to Brian's question, my answer is always, when it comes to selling the value with advisory, we want to focus on what could their business look like? What's possible in their business?
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Yes. And the thing you said so much of what you said is so great. The one big key is the small business owners, they work and live and breathe their business every day. They understand it, but they don't understand the financial business model behind it. So they don't necessarily know that one little change trickles through a whole business model and comes out as a different profit. They don't think that way, but accountants do. You've got the intertwining of those financial statements down, like mapped in your mind. So you know that one little change to receipt timing, or one change to some other component of the business model, you can map in your mind exactly how that goes through and will spell cash and profit. That's why this is so great for accountants. And the small business owner doesn't have that. They can't do that. And that's what they need. And those examples you gave, Mark, are so great. In the beginning, if you can show a little bit of that easily and quickly in the early conversations to get them to understand that you know that stuff. That's what you're going to bring. That quick, honestly, math. And
Absolutely.
help them. Yeah. And then the work just grows and becomes more.
Yeah. Yeah. We've said it a couple of times already. Advisory work is more about asking the right questions. It's not about knowing the answers. They know their business better than anybody else. But the problem that they have is because they're in their business every single day doing the work, they never take that step back and look at the bigger picture. And that's what they need. And it's someone who can ask the right questions. Simple question. Another question that I would ask when I was working with small businesses, I'd say, so you're struggling to grow right now. Think about all the years you've been in business. What's the best thing that you've ever done that's won more customers? And they'll know the answer. They'll say, oh, well, I did this, this, and this once. So when was the last time you did that? 3 years ago. So what would happen if you did that again right now? And so they know the answers, but they don't think to ask those questions because they're so into the day-to-day stuff and all the firefighting and dealing with customer phone calls and all that sort of stuff. It takes somebody else to just take a step back and ask those questions.
Yeah, totally. And they haven't allocated the time sometimes just to have the conversation. So some of this is just about dedicated time to do it, and then doing it with an expert who can guide the conversation really, really well. So, because the other thing to keep in mind is they often don't have another person in their business to have these kinds of conversations with, especially if the conversations become about tight cash or about shrinking profitability. They're not going to have those conversations with members of their staff. They can't do that. so that they need you.
Yeah, absolutely. And another tip that I would give about selling to current clients is, one of the things I learned some years ago is that, many years ago now, was when I used to talk to clients about how they could grow their business, what was possible, I then get to the stage where I then say, would you be interested in the advisory service? And sometimes I'd say yes, but sometimes they would say no. And that's fine. We have to recognize that no is never no. No is simply not yet. And the mistake that we make is a client says no, so we never ever talk to them about advisory ever again. And that's crazy, because what we have to do is we have to systemize the process of telling the clients about what we do and how we can help them achieve their goals. And that means if they said no this year, next time we have a meeting with the client, let's ask some more questions about where they want to get. What's the challenge in their business right now? What's the pain they're experiencing? What do they want to achieve? Because at some point, if we keep talking about how we help people grow their business, they're going to start, in their minds, start to see us different. It might take a couple of years, but they'll start to think, do you know what? I need to listen to this, my accountant, my bookkeeper, because he keeps talking about this. My business is getting worse. I'm struggling more and more. He talks sense. Now is the time for this. So we have to recognize that now might not be the right time. We have the conversation, but if they say no, that just simply means not yet. We have to keep having the conversation.
Yeah, if you could get every client if you could visualize the services that you offer from the least to the most, and get every one of your clients on a model that you manage, that moves them up that scale to wherever you think they might end. Some clients will never want or need everything that you do. Perfect. That's fine. As long as you're profitable along that scale, it doesn't matter. But if you can be thinking that way and just growing them that way. So we saw that as a need when we were building LivePlan Method for doing this work. We've got this great product, LivePlan, that does these things, but how can accountants use it systematically? And so we built a whole bunch of things that help accountants do that. But one thing is that exact bit that I just said. We have our packages, and then I have a whole chart that says, okay, 3 months in, if somebody's in this package, talk to them about this, because that's the conversation that might get them up into the next package. And if it doesn't, fine, it's not yet. Fine. Do it again in 9 months. Maybe it's still not yet. Fine. But at least you're trying, and you're not forgetting, and you're not doing it for free. You're intentional. You're being intentional about saying, I think this next package that I have for my next product really is great for you. Let me, give you a sampling of this, or however you end up doing that, but you're being intentional.
Yeah, sure. And so let's go back to this question from Hirsch, because I keep putting it off, but it now I think fits in nicely, because I think we've partly covered this. How does one find clients who want advisory services, as most of them want compliance only? And I think that my thoughts on this, Kathy, are, and I'll come into you in a second, but I think it's partly because people don't understand advisory. And it's because we need to change it's about focusing on what could be possible in their business. And also, it's also, I think, a lot of the conversation is asking questions to really uncover what's the pain that people are going through right now, because it's pain that drives action much more than anything else. And so if people just want compliance, it's probably because right now they're comfortable. They're not experiencing enough pain, or we've not had the conversations or asked the questions to really bring out the pain they're having. But I found, when I was doing advisory work in my accounting firm, I found that the clients that I found the easiest to sell advisory services to were ones that were going through some big pain right now. They were really struggling, and they just needed to change. And so it was about asking questions that would help me to uncover, well, what's going wrong? Clients that were struggling with cash flow was always, if they're struggling with cash flow, then they were a great candidate for doing some advisory work with. Have you got any more thoughts on that, Kathy?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it's about making sure you offer it correctly. The small businesses don't have the words for these things. They don't really know what they are. They don't know what to ask for. They just know. But I promise you, because I've seen it, and also we survey our small business owners, and so I know it because they tell us, when they hire their accountant, they assume this type of work is going to happen. They assume it. So it really is up to the accountants to expose it. and price it right and communicate it and just make sure it's part of that package. The small businesses are ready and waiting. They really assume this is part of what you do. They don't know otherwise. They just don't always have the right words.
Yeah, and that might lead on to my next question. Before I do that though, Irv Michael said, coming back to earlier, business coaching is a subset of business advisory. I absolutely agree with that.
I wanted to say hi to Irv as well. He's a great live plan partner.
Okay, yeah.
I'm happy to see him here.
Somebody else you may know possibly is Bob Harper's here. Hi there, Bob. Good to see you again.
I didn't see his name here. That's great. Hey, Bob.
No, I just know he's over on LinkedIn right now. So Bob and I did a session live a few months back, which on his take and his approach to advisory. So Bob does a lot of advisory work as well. And it may be, if Sarah's listening, she might put a link in the comments to this session I did with Bob.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Let me see. I'm going to see where the next. There's lots of comments going through, but I'm looking for. If you don't put QQ in front, I won't see the question because there were a lot of comments. I'm just skipping through the comments right now. I will read the comments afterwards. Okay, so here's let's do this question and then we'll move on to the next one that we're going to cover. So Edwin says, so you have done the cash flow and ratios for the client, then what happens?
Is that to me?
I'll go with you. Yeah.
Well, if you have a cash flow forecast, I assume you're saying forecast, then you talk to the client about it. If you have a cash, if you can show your client what their cash position will be 3, 6, 9, especially 9 months down the road, you've got a conversation there because now they have decisions to make. Either the cash is looking good or it's not, and you need to. So first, you need to explain to them what assumptions went in to producing that cash flow, so they understand all those assumptions and they're right. The assumptions are accurate, and they're managing day to day to those assumptions. So things like timing on cash receipts, if it's cash basis only, if you feel good about the timing of the revenues, whatever is feeding that cash model, you need to make sure that the assumptions are not only right, but the client understands them and is managing their business accordingly. Because that ends up what the conversation is about in the review. It's what are you doing? What's going on in your operation that's affecting this? And are you running your business according to these assumptions we've used?
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of additional thoughts, Edwin, is as far as ratios is concerned, when I used to be working with clients, I would often produce some ratios and use that for opportunity spotting. In other words, I would do some ratio analysis for clients as part of the compliance work to spot where things are going wrong. So, for example, if you are doing ratios or looking at, for example, gross margins, and if you spot trends where the gross margins are falling, then there's an opportunity there. The client's obviously is going in the wrong direction, and so we should be measuring those numbers so we can see what's going on in the business and look for the opportunities where clients might have a problem. If, for example, accounts receivable days or debtor days in the UK is going up, that might suggest if that carries on going up, they're going to have a big cash flow problem. So I think ratios are really powerful and can be used for the opportunity spotting. And going back to the cash flow forecast you mentioned, so what next? One of the things that, again, we've mentioned before, but we need to make sure we understand what their goals are. What do they want? Because then what I would do is I'd look at the cash flow forecast and compare that to where they want to be. Is that cash flow forecast going to help them get to where they want to be? Or is there a gap somewhere? And if there's a gap, then we need to fix that somehow. And that's where we would then get into the conversations, the asking the client questions. Let's move on to the next question, Kathy, because we've got 10 minutes left, and I know we need to talk about a couple of other things. So let's deal with the scope creep one, Kathy. The question we often get is, how do you handle scope creep with advisory? And I think we've sort of touched on it, but let's dive into this for a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think this just comes back to elements of things we've said before. The way to handle scope creep anywhere in any organization that is especially service-based is to know exactly what your products are and exactly what work feeds those products. And if at any moment in time you're doing work that doesn't feed the product they bought, you've got scope creep to deal with. And so you just have to mind that and know and decide. I mean, sometimes you're going to do a little bit extra in order to, because you think there's an opportunity for the client to move them into a higher package. You think the client would benefit from that higher package, and they might not really understand that, but you do. You feel that. And so you might do an expanded forecast or whatever is the next level up in your package that is interesting, just to show them that and say, I think you would benefit from this. Let me show you what that is. If you don't, fine. But that's a way to manage. But scope creep's managed the good old-fashioned way by knowing what are you producing, what are the things that feed that, and at any moment of time, if you're doing something that doesn't relate to that, you've got scope issue.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot about managing expectations. It's about communication. And that's one of the reasons why Kathy and I are big fans of productizing, creating packages for your advisory. So they know when they choose the middle option, it's really clear what they're getting, but it's also clear that they're not getting those things in the premium, because otherwise they'd have bought that. The more when we sign off the proposal, a fixed price agreement, the more clarity we have in not just what's included in the scope of the work, but what's outside, that really helps. So, for example, if you were doing monthly advisory work, it may be from time to time that you spot issues where you could have another project where you go in deeper. We start to do a separate project. We start to look at some of the systems going on in the business. That should be charged separately. And so you need to tell them right up front in the engagement process that from time to time, as we are doing the work with you, we will uncover opportunities, problems, projects where we can go and help you fix things. Those things will be outside the scope of this, and we will give you a fixed price up front as and when we discover. I've made that one up, but I hope that makes sense. That's kind of the idea. It's the words you use are so important right up front.
That's perfect. This is another tool we built when we realized, how much accountants needed to go along with LivePlan to understand how to use this in an efficient way. So we did build packages. We did that in conjunction with Mark, actually, packages that you can sell, and every package has a business process that goes along with it. And the business process is your scope. That's what you do. And if it's not on the business process, then it's not in that bundle. So there's one that goes with each. And then along the way, like I said, there's sort of checkpoints where you can do a little thing that will reveal value in a higher package and offer that to your client.
Yeah, great. We have 8 minutes left, Kathy. We have one more question. And I thought before we do the final question, Kathy, you've got a quick announcement to make. I have a quick announcement to make. So let's do those, and then we'll get on to question number 7. So Kathy, do you want to tell us about?
Yeah, I wanted to just make sure that the folks know twice a year. So we have a lot of online learning you can do with us. We have webinars you can attend. I come on conversations like this with Mark. We have a lot of help out there. But twice a year we do a boot camp because we learned that deep learning is appreciated and needed. So we put together this boot camp. It's 3 days of deep learning on especially how you do forecasting, but then how you build the forecast, how you analyze the forecast, how you use the forecast with your client month over month. And then day 3 is about selling and pricing and marketing. And so I was going to show the page, Mark, if you want to So this will get you to our bootcamp page. If you just Google LivePlan Bootcamp, it's November 8th through the 10th. And I'll just hold on. These are our guest speakers. We have accountants in our ecosystem come, and then we have staff, our own staff come. So for instance, our director of marketing actually teaches marketing content over at the U of O and is our marketing director as well. So, and same with our director of sales. He teaches entrepreneurship over at the U of O at the University of Oregon. And so our staff is adept at teaching. And so we combine our ecosystem with our staff and teach. And this is the agenda for the 3 days. I don't know if it's showing. There you go. So, day 1 is all about forecasting and prepping the forecast. Day 2 is about delivering the forecast and advisory. And day 3 is package, market, and sell. 3 days, and we have a discount code. And while you are giving your announcement, Mark, I will look up that discount code. It's just for the folks here today.
Awesome, Kathy. And so if you send Sarah any links or whatever, she'll put them in the description.
Oh, great.
After the live stream. So because this for those of you that want to revisit the video, this is being recorded, will be on my YouTube channel, and we'll put any links in the description probably in the next 24 hours. So the other thing I was going to say is I also run an event twice a year. It's called the Business Advisory Masterclass, and the next time I'm running that, it's three sessions, 3 live sessions online. It's November 30th, December 1st, December 2nd. I'll be publishing details of that online through my social channels nearer the time, but if you want to make sure it's in your calendar, it's November 30th through to December the 2nd. Okay, we have 5 minutes. Anya says, can we have a link to the bootcamp? Absolutely, we'll get that to you, Anya, and put it into the description above. Okay, so...
Do you want me to send that right now or not?
If you can multitask, you can do it right now, but we're done in 5 minutes, so you could send it in 5 minutes if you want. I'll leave it entirely up to you. I personally, I can't multitask. I'm hopeless.
Okay.
So,
well, it's Lifetime Bootcamp, and there's a promotional code, Wickersham20. If you use that at checkout, you'll get 20% off.
Okay, Wickersham20. Cool. So 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Final thoughts then on question 7, which I know we've covered a little bit already, so perhaps just a final thought, which is how do you deliver a solution? What do you do with the client? So what's your kind of top thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I feel like I've alluded to it. Maybe I alluded to it more than I was supposed to before this question. But what you do with the client is first set about to understand their goals, where they want to get, because these small businesses are small, right? These are not, by and large, public companies you're working with big boards. These are micro business owners, and so their even personal goals affect their day-to-day. So you have to understand their goals and almost their personal intention of where they want to take their business. Then you work through their business model and represent that in terms of a forecast, a financial forecast that is really a profit and loss, cash flow, balance sheet forecast. You do that through question and answer with them, understanding their business model, and then LivePlan will help you build that forecast. That's what LivePlan does. It's a question and answer, holding business assumptions, producing this forecast. Or another tool if you have another favorite tool to do that. But you need a tool that helps you build that forecast. You don't want to use Excel because Excel is great. You can do a billion things with it, but the problem is you can't get to scale because it's all custom every time. So you need a product to help you do that. And then you work with them every month to review that forecast. That's my quickest answer.
Yeah, and you have a huge amount of training, Kathy, and LivePlan on the delivery side of things. I know much of the bootcamp is about delivery. So my answer to that one, just to keep it really short, is I see the delivery as 2 main chunks, which is really what I'm echoing what Kathy's said, but you've got to ask questions up front. You've got to understand what their goals are, what they want out of life, what they want out of their business, what their pain is, because that initial getting the strategy right, understanding that, the goal setting, that's crucial. And then what happens is it then becomes a monthly recurring service where what you're basically doing is you're helping them to become successful, to achieve their goals. And that means working with them ideally every month, producing some numbers, helping them understand the numbers, asking some questions, giving some advice, coaching them. And ultimately the agenda is to help them overcome the challenges, the problems, and to help them take the actions they need to take. A lot of it I mentioned is accountability, and what I would find is that at the end of a session the client would say, yeah, I need to do this, this and this, these 3 things I need to do. You get to the next meeting and say to the client, so last month you said the 3 most important things that you were going to do with these. How did you get on? I got a bit busy, I got distracted. And that very often happens. And that's where the kind of the coaching, the accountability really comes in, that we provide huge value by helping them to recognize that they need to do these things. And so what I would do is every couple of weeks, I just email the client, just say, just checking up with you, how are you getting on with those things? I give them a quick call. How are you getting on? Do you want any help? And that's a lot of the value is pricking their conscience. It's about making them realize that if they want to change, if they want to achieve their goals, there's things they've got to do, and you're there to help them make those actions, those changes.
Yeah, we actually built agendas for each of these meetings. So we see it as 3 meetings. There's a kickoff meeting that you can do or not do. It depends on kind of your business model. But then there's a planning meeting that happens one time. After you get through that, you're in a routine of meeting, and then we have a monthly review agenda. And I think of that because it starts exactly what you said, that the monthly review starts with last month's to-do items, and it ends with next month's to-do items. And you pick right back up every month. All right, what were our to-dos? Did those get done? If not, they feed right into what we're going to talk about this month.
Awesome. Kathy, that's been great. This has been fun. We've covered a lot of stuff. There's probably a load more stuff we could cover, but it's a big topic. And that's why you have your 3-day boot camp where you can go really, really deep. And I have my masterclass in a little while time, as end of November. So thank you everyone for coming. If you've found this valuable, if you've enjoyed this, then please just give it the thumbs up, the like, wherever you are, whatever platform you're on. And as always, I play out with a bit of music because it gives me a chance just to read through any final comments. Hopefully I've got through most of the questions that you've asked. If you've got any burning questions that I've missed, feel free to ask me via my Facebook group, Value Pricing with Mark Wickersham. And me or others will answer those questions. So it leaves me to say thank you so much, Kathy.
Thank you so much. And, I just always love talking to you and your audience. They're the best.
Yeah. And I will see you next on your bootcamp, which I can't wait.
Yep.
That'll be fun.
November 10th. Awesome. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
I wasted all my time, I wasted all my nights, I wasted it on someone who's indifferent. He didn't love me right, he told me I was blind, but I never really wanted to listen.